We'll get started here. Scott Groves, Movement Mortgage Consolidated Coaching. I am super, super blessed to be interviewing my friend and a mentor, Chandler Bolt. Chandler Bolt is the owner, CEO, head coach, catch-all for a company called Self-Publishing School, SPS. We'll definitely link to them in this Facebook Live video and send everything out. And SPS and Chandler is who I used specifically to help kind of gather my thoughts, come up with a plan, write my book, which is 61 Days to Double Your Pay, Lead Generation. And I can tell you, even though I had hundreds of thousands of words over 5 years in my head and kind of a fake manuscript, if it wasn't for Chandler's program, direction, the digital, the one-on-one coaching from his writing staff, the book would have never got finished. So Chandler, first of all, thanks for being on. And what did I miss in that, other than the fact that you run a massively successful business 100% virtually, which is pretty relevant here at the end of April as everybody's working home. So what did I miss?
Well, the only thing you miss is how awesome you are and how fun it's been working with you, because you make it fun, man. I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than working with people who do the work and listen to what you say and then do it. And so it's been awesome, man. I've had a blast working with you with seeing your book happen and then seeing the business stuff as we've been working with the accelerator and Author Advantage Live and all that stuff. And that's just been a lot of fun. And then I'd say you don't even know this, but I use your story in a lot of webinars now.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna need a little royalty fee there, bro. So let's just dive into it, right? Because if anybody is watching this, they probably trust my opinion that, like, if you're going to write a book, just give Chandler and his team whatever amount of money that they want. They'll walk you through it, soup to nuts, like literally from kind of extrapolating the best idea all the way through to like clicking publish on Amazon and then promoting the book. Like, your guys is one of the few digital courses, maybe this says more about me than you guys, but you guys are one of the few digital courses that I've ever finished. And I think it's because you guys have the digital course plus the high touch interaction with a real person. And so if you want to write a book, just go through SPS, pay Chandler and his team the money, they'll help you get there. But let's talk about if somebody's watching this and they're in the first 2 minutes and they're like, I never thought about writing a book. Why would somebody want to write a book in general, Chandler? And then, right now, as we're all in shelter and home and COVID-19, lots of extra time. Maybe now is the perfect time to write that book. But why do people write books to begin with?
Yeah. So, I mean, I look at it as like a book is one of the best ways to grow your impact, to grow your income, to grow your business. And obviously I talk about leverage impact a decent amount in my TEDx talk, what thing hanging all over the wall over my head. I believe in that. We believe that books change lives. Books change the life of the author while they're writing it, and books change the lives of the reader while they're reading it. And so for me, I went from a C-level English student and college dropout, someone who hated reading and hated writing, to someone who now has written a bunch of books, runs a school, and who loves reading. Like I believe a book is a $15 mentor, right? You got so many people that they're like, how do I get a mentor? Or how can I get someone to mentor me? And literally the smartest, most successful people on the planet have taken all of this best stuff that they learned and put it into a book for $15. And all you got to do is pay to buy it and then read it. And so I think that's really powerful. But as far as like people listening, it's really in line with, I think, what you talk about is I always look at like use a book to generate more leads, more sales, more referrals. So it's like strictly business side of things, I think, is something to grow your business. Those are the 3 buckets I look at. So, more leads means more people who hear about you because of your book and come into your ecosystem through or because of your book. More sales is a higher percentage of the people who already know about you end up working with you. So increasing your close rate, your sales rate, any of those things. And so that's the sales piece, and using the book as part of the sales mechanism. And, at the time of us recording this, we just relaunched the Self-Publishing School podcast literally today. Cool. So I've been doing all these interviews, and again and again and again, the people that I've been talking to, whether it's Russell Brunson, Michael Hyatt, Ruth Sukup, a bunch of different people, but they go back to like their best converting leads are the people who come from their books. And so it's a major funnel, an entry point for everything that you do from a business perspective. And then the third bucket being referrals. And so, this sounds like something you would do or would recommend, but is, every single customer that comes into your world, give them 2 books. So one for them And then now that book's, in their office, it's at their home. So every time they see that, they think of you. Right. And if they're calling someone for a mortgage, like they're going to know Scott Groves. Scott Groves is literally in their home because of your book. But then also if you give it to them, and this is something I learned from a chiropractor, I was speaking to a bunch of chiropractors, and the main guy that was running the whole event, he was like, yeah, this is how I grew one of the largest chiropractic clinics in all of North America. Is every new patient, I gave them 2 books, said, hey, this one's for you. And then the second one, he had this little spiel. It was like, hey, most books don't come with a string attached. This one does. And that's that you have to give this to someone, that needs help, like struggling with back pain in his example. But like, give this book to someone, who's thinking about buying a house or in the next year or whatever, right? Like that trigger thing is, so now all of a sudden you're taking customers and then turning them into active refers. But not business card, because who cares? Like you give someone a business card, they're going to throw it away almost instantly, or leave it at the hotel room if you're at a conference. But people don't throw away books. So lead sales and referrals, like that's the main thing that I've seen for me personally. Like the reason books are we drink our own Kool-Aid. It's like at the central point of what we do. But I think for most people, it's one of the best things you can do to kickstart your business and grow revenue.
I'm taking some notes here. I think a couple key takeaways that I have is a book is not something you write to be the next J.K. Rowling, right? You're not gonna write Harry Potter, probably not going to write Harry Potter and become a multimillionaire or even a thousandaire from the books that you sell. But when you say give them away, kind of break down that myth of people think like, well, if I'm gonna write this money and put all this time in, like, how long is it going to take me to make my money back on $15 a book? Or, I've heard people that are just starting to conceptualize a deal be like, well, what's the split with Amazon? It's like, no, you're missing the point. The point is you give somebody a book instead of a business card. When I meet with realtors, if I just give them, because I do mortgages, and so that's kind of my lead funnel is realtors sending me their clients who I want to build a relationship and help with a loan. Everybody throws away business cards. I've never handed anybody a book and had them throw it in the trash on the way out the door. So 100%. Talk a little bit about this misconception of like, hey, well, how much money am I going to make off the book? What does Amazon charge me to publish the book? It's like, no. You're missing the point. You want to give this out for free. So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, really I think the main thing is that you're going to do work once, and you're going to reap the benefits from it forever. So like, I think that's the fundamentals. It's like, all right, yes, it might suck. And yes, you might have to bunker down for 3 months or whatever, but like, you're going to get this thing done. And after you're off this earth, that book's still here. 3 years from now, if you still sell 50 books on Amazon, that's $100, a couple $100, right? So like truly doing work once, and then it continues to bring in royalties, but also business. So that's where I look at it kind of like a 2-prong, like, sure, how do I get a royalties pop and like, have some royalty money coming in? And for most people, that's one of, if not the only true form of passive income that they have. You're not going to get rich from it, but it's, nice little thing that just shows up. But then the other one is way more powerful, which is exactly what you were talking about, which is, all right, how do I structure this book in a way, and then also integrate it into what I'm already doing from a business perspective, which is for us, that's, free plus shipping book funnel. That's when someone registers for a webinar, we give them a free copy of the book. When I go speak at events, we bring 300 books. So now all of a sudden the conference organizer, it's a value prop for them, because we say, hey, we're going to bring $3,000 worth of books, that only cost us a few $100. And then now every single person in the conference has a book. And so you're seeing it everywhere. And you've been to events that I've spoken at. And so you see that effect of like, everyone's like, oh, what's that? Who are they? Oh man, they have a booth out there. Oh, let me go talk to their team. Boom, they're signing up for self-publishing school. Or they're reading the book on the flight home. And then this happens all the time. They read the book on the flight home, and then they book a call with the team. And they're like, oh, I missed your session, but one of your guys gave me a book. And then I read it, and then I booked a call because this sounds interesting. I want to do this. So it's like, just how do you do it in a way that is going to feed into everything that you're already doing and make it more effective? Leads, sales, referrals, and like pulling levers in each of those buckets. But then also like, integrate it into everything that you're already doing. Yeah, like kind of like I was just saying.
Yeah, and spoiler alert for anybody who's watching, I wrote my book because I wanted to have a book. It was a labor of love. I didn't really think through all these business opportunities until I got hooked up with Chandler's team, and they really helped me identify the business opportunity of the whole thing. But the reality, and something I knew either subconsciously or consciously, was like, hey, at the end of the day, I don't really even care if a majority of people who pick up a copy ever read the book. The fact that it's there, it validates me as an expert in the area of lead generation. You know, that helps and gives me a foot in the door with realtors. That helps me with potential coaching clients. You know, I had somebody, you and I have talked about it. They hired me for a speaking engagement where I made some money. It was very cool. And the speaking engagement was about lead generation. The organizer of the event admitted to me when we closed, he's like, hey, I was a little worried as you were getting on stage because I realized I never even cracked open the book. But just the fact that you had it, he's like, it kind of legitimized you as the expert and had the best-selling tag on Amazon and stuff. So it's so cool for somebody to give you money without ever actually looking at the material. It's just the presence of the material was enough. So I'd love to hear, you know, there's probably somebody watching that that's like, well, I don't really have a business that scales that way, or I'm a dance teacher. How is a book really going to help me? Or, you know, we're in California, maybe somebody watching this owns a cannabis store or something of that nature. You know, there's all kinds of crazy industries. So can you give me a few examples of the craziest books that you guys have helped get published and written?
Oh man, there's so many crazy ones. I mean, you know, or at least have heard of in the community, Wendy Vanderpool, Pet Loss Grief. I didn't even know that was a thing. She's got a whole series now.
Hold on, just in case somebody missed that. If somebody missed that, they're watching on Facebook. She wrote a book about how to deal with the grief of losing your pet.
Yeah.
Talk about a niche industry. And 100%. At one of the events we were at, she got up and spoke, and she's like, I didn't even know this was a thing. There's huge pet funeral syndicates. She got hired to be a consultant to consult funeral directors who handle the deaths of pets and how to console the people. It's
like
really
my dog died, what do I do? My cat died, what do I do? My insert animal died, what do I do? And it's a full series, just like our mutual friend Hal Elrod. It's a different type of series, the Miracle Morning series. But yeah, so that's probably one of the craziest that I've seen. I mean, we've seen a lot of really crazy books, but I would say, like, I think this works in a lot of cases even better locally and in brick and mortar, because you can just saturate the marketplace. So if you're trying to become the person, I mean, shoot, for a few thousand books, you can be in every household in your county. I mean, depending on where you live, obviously
maybe not LA
that's
County.
not going to work. But like, you know, think about, okay, who are the 1,000 people that I need to know me in this county that could even 100 that if they knew me, that my business would blow up, and I would send all of them a book, and I would just embed it in everything that we're doing. So like one kind of more tangible example is, you know, my mom's working on a book on real estate. And so I told her, it's like, okay, Mom, she's like the top, I don't know, 3-5%, whatever in the county, for all realtors, and everyone that's above her is a team, but everyone that's above her, it also sells way less houses. Like she just sells, like, this is South Carolina. So it's like, you know, $150,000, $250,000 average deals. And she's just slinging deals. I'm like, Mom, okay, you want to retire, you want to work a day or two less a week, you got to go up market. You got to go lake houses. You got to go luxury real estate. So for her, I'm like, you got to write the book on luxury real estate in Oconee County, South Carolina. Like, cause then now all of a sudden when people Google that, when they're searching around, when you put those books everywhere, like, you will be in their mind that person. And it's not going to take that much, but now all of a sudden you've done this. And so when people are comparing options, they're like, oh, well, this person wrote the book on it. Kind of like the guy who booked you to speak. It's like, oh, I didn't even read your book, but it's like, well, you wrote the book on lead generation, so you probably know what you're talking about. And so I think it just kind of tips the scales in your favor and can work even better locally.
We know a mutual friend, and his name escapes me right now. He did something similar in Texas. He was a realtor, and he wrote a series of books. And the first one was like owning ranch property in Texas or whatever, you know, and he talked to some ranchers, and he got a bunch of, you know, tips. And then that was his book when he sold to ranchers. And then he got another one that was like living on the lake in Texas. And so now he's like the go-to realtor in these little niches. And, you know, it's not nearly as much work to write a book.
Chance.
Diego.
Okay.
There you go.
Diego Corzo.
It's not nearly as much work to write a book as people think. So walk us through, without boring us with all the details of the program, because writing a book has to be a little bit of a labor of love. Kind of walk us through maybe 2 or 3 steps that people should be conceptualizing. If they're kicking around an idea, maybe it has nothing to do with their work. Maybe they just want to be, the expert on AirPods for some reason, because that's something that interests them. Like, what's the process of somebody starting to conceptualize what their book should be?
Yeah. So really it's super simple. It's 3 steps. And I talk about this in my TEDx talk in a very simple way. That's, kind of there's visuals on the screen, stuff like that, but it's a 3-step process we call the 24-hour book outline challenge. So it's how do you go from idea to outline in 24 hours? That's the goal. And so it's the 3 steps to writing your book. Step number 1, mind map. So brainstorm everything that you can think of on this topic. Right. So I'll pull this out. Like, my map looks something like this. You're brainstorming. This is literally, I was brainstorming. This was a presentation, but I do the same exact thing for brainstorming a book. So mind map, everything you can think of down on the page, then turn that mind map step 2 into an outline. So you start to organize your ideas into groups. So we'll call it 5 groups of ideas or 5 sections. You order those sections in the order that you want to cover them. About 3 chapters per section. So now all of a sudden you have, about a 15 chapter outline. And then step 3, you write the book. So, and this is kind of a choose your own adventure. So you either write it or speak it. So either, but you go 1 chapter at a time, and you go 10 minutes mind mapping everything you can think of on that chapter, 10 minutes turning that mind map into an outline for the chapter, and then either 45 minutes to an hour and a half writing the chapter, or 10 minutes speaking the chapter, and you repeat that process chapter by chapter by chapter.
That's awesome. I know one of the things that your team really helped me zero in on is, like, when I first mind mapped, if you're just writing all kinds of ideas, business development could be volumes and volumes and volumes of books. And that's what I was thinking. And then your team really helped me, like, hey, what's the core idea here? What I had in my mind was a, 400,000 word encyclopedia, not a 25,000 word business book. Mm-hmm. And they really helped me narrow it down to, hey, your core focus here is really just lead generation. And I think that's why people need a writing coach like what you guys employ in your program. Because if not, the average person, especially myself, will just start to meander, and then the book will never get done. And they'll think, only special people can write books.
Yeah.
Trust me, I barely have like the equivalent of a 7th grade English education. I don't know how I made it through high school. I did make it through high school, graduated, woo! And you guys made it really, really easy to write a book. So maybe you can
I'll just real quick on that, Scott. And I think the takeaway for folks, because I love that, it comes down to core message, core audience, right? What's the core thing that you're talking about, and who's the one person that you're talking to? And I don't know if the team walked you through this as well, but one of the things that we usually walk people through is okay, you got your avatar, but for most people that's too broad. And then you're like, oh, what's my voice? Do I say this? Do I be funny? Do I be serious? Do I have the story here? And you start overthinking it. But we like to picture one person. So who's the one person that you actually know in your life that needs that book? And so if it's Scott, then it's like, I would almost even write the book like each chapter would be Dear Scott. And then I'd go in, and then if I'm thinking I've got my core message, but Scott's my core audience. So then all the other stuff becomes way easier, because I think, oh, should I be funny or should I be serious? Was like, well, how would I say this to Scott? Should I use this story? Should I not? Well, would this story resonate with Scott? Like it just, all the decisions go through that lens. And then now you got your core message delivered to core audience in a way that resonates. And then guess what? All the other Scotts are like, oh my gosh, this book was written directly to me, but it's because you actually had a person in mind that that you were writing the book to.
So I took that advice to heart. I wrote my book about 3 years ago now. And at the time, a friend of mine, Cole Strange, was just an up-and-comer. What a great name, right? Cole Strange. Sounds like a superhero. He was an up-and-comer in the mortgage business. He was at that spot where he was putting in the work. He was just getting started. He was closing a deal a month. And I was like, okay, if I'm writing to Cole to go from 1 deal a month to 10 deals a month, what's the conversation? And the beautiful part is, like, the book just kind of wrote itself, because then I would talk into a microphone. I would get that transcribed by Rev for like $5. And then I would just go back and edit it. And each chapter kind of wrote itself because I was just talking to Cole. And what I'm super proud of, I actually talked to Cole this morning before this podcast. He's going to fund 13 deals this month. So, most of that is his hard work, but some of it is like the book and the prescriptive nature of it actually 100%. Works. So, your guys' plan and how you walked me through that to pick an avatar, pick an audience, write the book to one person, super invaluable lesson.
That's awesome.
Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't pick your brain because, like I said, if somebody's watching this recorded or on replay, we're here towards the end of April. Everybody's at shelter in place, COVID-19. Obviously, take into account that you and I are really sympathetic to anybody who's dealing with personal tragedy. Let's just kind of stay in our lane and hopefully add some value where we can. You run a massively successful, and I won't share any of your revenue numbers because it's nobody else's business, but you guys run a massively successful business, all remotely, 30, 40 employees around the globe. Can you give us, 5 minutes of your best tips for, running a business, scaling a business, and doing it virtually? Just give us your whole business model in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and we should share this with accelerator people as well, because I'm sure everybody's running into this. So, I mean, there's a few things, and like one thing I would say is like I've got a podcast called the 7-Figure Principles Podcast, YouTube channel called the 7-Figure Principles Show. Like if you're looking to solve any specific business problem, pretty much just search on that channel and you'll find it. So like if it's how to work from home, there's a video for that. If it's how to hire your first salesperson, there's a video for that. If it's how to create a playbook, which we've talked about, there's a video for that. So like a lot of the fundamentals are there, but I think it really comes down to, how we create virtual culture and things like that. And I think that's a lot of stuff. Like my video or my views on that work from home video went through the roof over the past few weeks because everybody's searching for it because they're having to do it for the first time. But
right.
What I think most people are overlooking is it's the same fundamentals. If you're in an office or if you're virtual, it's like, okay, cool. They're in the office all day. Still, how do you know if they're actually working? You don't. Right. Or like, how do you know if they're being productive? So I think it really comes down to systems, rhythms, and KPIs. It's like if I were to boil it down to three main things. And so, your KPIs are, and then, I have a video on this as well as job scorecards. Like the job scorecard is the definition of success per person on your team. And then I just got off of 5 back-to-back one-on-ones with the 5 people on my team that directly report to me. That's a rhythm, right? And on that rhythm, we're reviewing their job scorecard and we're reviewing their KPIs. And that within itself is now actually, it's a newer system for SPS, which is a system of one-on-ones. And we just standardize one-on-ones across the whole company.
Do me a favor, for those people that aren't into the business jargon, define what a KPI is and why that's so important in business.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for clarifying. So KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. So it's really the top 1 to 3 numbers that if I do well in my role, then those numbers are going to go up. So for example, if I'm in sales, well, revenue is the main KPI, but that's a lagging indicator. So maybe the leading indicators would be close rate, would be number of dials, would be number of appointments completed or things like that. If I'm in marketing, it might be qualified appointments generated for the sales team. If I'm trying to think KPIs. If I'm in, for the Omer who runs product, it's results, the 3 R's, results, renewals, and referrals. So how successful are students and what percentage of them are getting the result that we promise? Renewals, which is a function of lifetime value, LTV. That's what percentage of people are buying something else once we get them that result or when they're in the process. And then referrals, what percentage of people or how much of our revenue is coming from referral business. So like that's his 3 KPIs, results, renewals, referrals. And like, we've just been talking about that till everyone's blue in the face. And,
right.
And he goes to his team and it's, all right, guys, 3 R's, results, renewals, referrals. And then our theme for the quarter is back to the basics. So we're in like our critical number. I'm going like way down on a trail here, but like, this is kind of how we look at it. It's like our critical number for the quarter is, I think it's 875 lives changed, which is back to the basics, which is a life change is we count it as like a student got the result that we promised them, a student signed up for a program, so a sale, and then the student or someone bought a ticket for Author Advantage Live. Because that's like, so these are like 3 things that we really care about and that really will drive the business. And so I'm trying to get the whole team focused. And I think this is super relevant for everyone right now. And I've got a video on this on my channel as well. It's like the only two things that matter in your business is like, is how do we, what we're doing should only be for one of two things. It should either be getting, we call it a little bit, so I'll say what it should be and I'll say what we call it. So it should be, getting new customers or making customers happier. Like anything in your business, if it doesn't fit in one of those buckets, you shouldn't be doing it. For us, that's getting students signed up and getting students results. Right. Yeah. And so like, it's basically the same thing, but we just kind of personalize that. So back to the basics as a theme is focus on those two things. So like right now, more than ever, I think we've got a huge blessing as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as any position that you're in. It's like, we have just been trimming the fat like crazy. And it's all right. How can we cut 25% of what we're doing that's not driving results for our students, or that's not driving, getting students signed up? Like, how do we cut and trim and get back to the basics? And it's been, I mean, we've cut so much expenses. Revenue's way up. Profitability is up as of recent. We had a little bit of a dip, so that kind of sucked. But like things, it feels like are just really moving in the right direction. And the thing I constantly am talking about with my team is, we're going to get to the end of this and we're going to be better because this happened, not in spite of this happening.
Right.
Right. And like, this is going to force us to get more disciplined and to get back to the basics in so many different ways, where if we would have just been fat and happy and continuing on just like, cool, we're just going to grow 40% a year and keep, like it's forcing us to, I think we're going to be way better because this happened. So I think that's maybe a question for folks to ponder is like, how can I get better because this happened, not in spite of this happening? So like, right. What are the lessons that we can learn here that we can, in all of our own ways, get back to the basics, get back to the fundamentals and blocking and tackling?
Well, it's funny, you mentioned the KPI, and there's a couple other things I want to dig into there that you said. The KPI, I'm finding some of the leaders that I know are doing a better job managing virtually, because since they don't see that person every day, they're like, well, if I want to know that person's actually working, I've got to have some KPI, I've got to have some key performance indicators to know whether they're doing their job. Whereas when you see somebody in person every day, it's easy for them to hide in plain sight. So I'm finding some leaders getting better because of COVID-19 and the shelter in place versus in spite of it. And then it's interesting. You mentioned the key takeaways. One of my favorite people is this real estate coach named Steve Scholl, who I've got to introduce you to sometime. You guys would love each other. You both live on the West Side. And Steve says his sole mission in life is to get his realtors to either be lead generating, doing listing appointments, or negotiating contracts. He's like, those are the only three things in real estate that make you money. And all the other stuff that's like on the periphery, if that's the right word, he's like, it's just a time suck. It's just you tending to be busy but not being successful. If you're not generating, negotiating contracts, or doing listing appointments, you're not making money. So just quit the business now. And he's brutally honest when he comes to that stuff. So,
and I mean, it's funny because those could be your next one or two books, and then now you got books on the three core things that you need to be doing.
There we go. I need to introduce you to Steve because he needs to write a book. He's a hardcore guy, ex-linebacker for the Miami Dolphins, played with Dan Marino, and now he's just a badass real estate coach. Would be a big addition to your circle. Also, you said one more thing in there that I will link to your YouTube principles. Where is it? I know that was based off of a couple of our we share a love for Ray Dalio and his principles series on YouTube. 100%. Your principles series on business, running business, has now become part of our onboarding process. My new executive assistant is watching one principles video a day until she gets so
that's exactly what we do with new team members for SPS. That's awesome, man.
Nice. So we're going to link to that below. And then tell me, kind of last but not least, and we'll kind of wrap up here. Like, what do people need to know about writing the book process? Like, how will they know that they're on track? And then how will they know they're behind, and how your team can kind of help them through that? Because I think a lot of people, myself included, we got shiny object syndrome. We're like, yes, let's do that. Let's sign up for that. Let's try this. But like a book, it's like, if you're not going to hire a coach and you're not going to finish, don't even bother starting. So tell me a little bit about how people know that they're on track, how long this might take them, and then what do you guys do to help them if they fall off the track?
Yeah. So it's so funny because it pretty much comes down to the three things I was just talking about from a business perspective, but for your book, it's rhythms, systems, and KPIs. So, I mean, like that's really what it comes down to. So our whole thing is taking people from blank page to published author in as little as 90 days. And a lot of times it's 3 to 9 months. It's kind of average of what we see students taking. And on the contrary, is if you traditionally publish, it's going to take you probably 2+ years. Or if you try to self-publish yourself, it might, who knows how long it's going to take. Because
Lifetime.
At the end of the day, well, yeah. And I think you were going on 4 years when we started working together. Like, because people, and you've probably seen this on my slides, webinar slides, I think about this. It's like, we talk about how it's like a mix between Indiana Jones and Jillian Michaels. It's like, you need someone to blaze the trail, and then you need someone to hold you accountable. And so like, but the rhythm, systems, KPIs, like the systems, that's the process. And the funny thing is, as we start focusing more and more on playbooks and systems, the more that we realize that really, digital courses and all that is really just a playbook or SOP of what you're doing or have done. So like, we just rolled out the PR and speaking for authors beta, and we're rolling into next week. We're launching it in evergreen format. And it was so funny because when we were creating the content, we had so many playbooks on how we were doing speaking, PR, podcast, media, all that stuff in the business, that a lot of it was just like iterating off of playbooks and then recording a video about the playbook. Or in some cases, like I would create the content for PR and speaking, and it's like, oh man, we're now training up our sales reps to do webinars, to do speaking gigs, all that stuff. So then I'm like, okay, well, perfect. I asked the sales rep what they needed to know. I created the content. So now it's a playbook and a module in the course. So it's like
Right.
ultimate back to the basics. But I think there's a little bit of a tangent off of your question. Like, how would you know whether you're off pace? So there's the SOP, there's a system process to follow. That's what I mean.
Which you guys have digitally,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. The program, there's free content online. There's my book published, like whatever path you want to take there. There's the rhythms, which is group coaching calls, one-on-one coaching calls, like those sort of things. And then there's the KPIs. So in the early days, that might be word count because you're trying to hit, your rough draft target. But then as it develops, it might be publishing costs, or it might be number of books sold, number of leads generated from your book, stuff like that.
Yeah, I know the people that I'll be broadcasting this to, or if you're watching it live on Facebook right now, are like the overachievers. So I truly believe anybody that follows your system, because you're right, I had worked on kind of various thoughts and manuscripts for 4 or 5 years or whatnot. But when I got serious and I took your program, my book went from like, didn't even have a title to edited at a professional level, ready to click publish on Amazon in about 100 days.
Nice.
And what I ended up doing is, after I went through the whole program, I had the outline, I had everything. I just went and locked myself in a hotel room for 3.5, 4 days and just knocked out the whole book in 3 days. Because once I had gone through all the mind melding and the mind mapping and the outline and talking to one person, well, then just filling in the rest of the words were like the's, ats, wins, it really wrote itself. And then I sent it to, one of the professional editors that you guys recommended, and I came back with a book that actually made it look like I can write in English.
Yeah, that's amazing, man.
Cool, man. Well, anything, I know that you guys, obviously your core function and your core product is this idea of writing books. I've been super blessed to get to know you and Lisa and the rest of the team on a business side. And I've taken so many business lessons out of your guys' company that I'm now implementing into my mortgage business and the coaching business and whatnot. Is there any other products that are upcoming, courses that are upcoming, any way that you want to, add value or throw out a pitch out there? Or should they just tune into your YouTube channel and watch all those principles videos?
Yeah. I mean, the principles videos are awesome. And I just rolled out the podcast, which there's a 7-Figure Principles podcast with new episodes happening every Tuesday and Thursday. And then there's a Self-Publishing School podcast that's new episodes every Wednesday.
Okay, so I gotta
like those
I
are
gotta
two
ask
good
real quick.
resources. Yeah.
Tell me about that Seven Figures podcast because I haven't got to tune into that. What's the ethos behind that
It's
podcast?
literally the same exact thing as the videos, but the audio. So it's
Got it.
just podcast form. So the whole thing was I realized I'm like, man, I feel like these videos are really, really good. And it's a gap in the marketplace of like no one's talking about this. Everyone's talking about sales and marketing and other stuff. But like this is like, operator, kind of like the nerdy, non-sexy business stuff. And so I felt like it was a gap and it was really good. But then I got to thinking, I'm like, well, I would never go on YouTube and be like, oh, how do I hire someone on YouTube? Right. Like, oh, cool. That's like that. But the target audience is listen to podcasts. So it was just go where, I think the lesson in there is go where your target customers are, which I don't have anything to sell on that side of the business really. Maybe like Author Advantage Accelerator, which you're in, but that's like, really, that's not a starting point in our first product. So that's just more of a fun side project, the 7-Figure Principles podcast. So that's what started that. And then Self-Publishing School is just, we're doing more and more business, or the Self-Publishing School podcast. We're helping more and more business focused authors. It's really our bread and butter. And what are those folks doing? They're listening to podcasts. So like, those are the main things. Really our bread and butter is helping people write and publish books. And then we got other like course building for authors, PR and speaking for authors, like other stuff, Author Advantage Live. Like I would love to see everyone that's watching or listening to this at Author Advantage Live this fall. It's still happening.
Nice.
It's not till end of September. So fingers crossed that we're all good by then. But like that's a really fun opportunity in person. And then really all the stuff behind getting the book done is just because it's like, with us working together, it's like once we already work together, it's like, okay, cool. We're legit. We know you're legit. This is fun. Let's keep doing it.
Nice, man. Well, look, I really appreciate your time today. Anybody who's growing a business, needs some operational help, or just wants to really scale, whether it's their first hire or they're debating whether or not to hire a CFO, which was one of our COO, Chief Operating Officer, was one of my favorite videos. I'll put the link below. It's just been really great getting to know you and know your company and see how it all works and how you're really, really helping people get to the end product. Because I think there's so many online salesmen and influencers, and I know you're pretty young. There's a bunch of 25-year-olds that have figured out how to sell a course, but they're not really changing anybody's life because people aren't getting to the end of that course. So if you're giving any thought whatsoever to writing a book, please get in touch with Chandler's team. Again, we'll put the link below, or you can probably just click this video depending on how Chris sets it all up. And man, I appreciate you a lot.
Hey, right back at you, Scott. You're the man. It's been a lot of fun working together over the last, I didn't even realize it's been 3 years since you wrote.
3 years, yeah. I've had to put up with me that long.
Hey, it's a lot of fun. And the best is yet to come.
All right, man. We'll talk soon, and I'll see you in Venice for a beer whenever this whole shelter and home place thing.
100%. Well, we got another in-person coming up, I think, in July, so fingers crossed.
All right. I'll see you then, man.
See ya.
Later.